delightful talk. I'm sure that we all enjoyed it completely and thoroughly. You are such a good reader, a fascinating reader, a perverse reader, and you take pleasure in your perverse readings, but you took us along for a fantastic ride. I would like to ask the audience whether they have any questions for our speaker today. Professor Shin?
Yeah. Thank you very much for that very enchanting conversation. What I see here is a wordplay. It's a jeu de langue on different terms here. Exclusively talking about how term women in different languages, registers are being played. We supposedly follow their social, cultural prejudices and determinants that shape cultures and nationalities and what have you. At the same time, I see that the last slide, they try to suggest that these wordplay that are being played in different cultures and different contexts tend to support the line of division, the strength of the line of division that still separates men and women, not only biologically but ideologically. Right, but that I get that. I get that. But because I find it very enchanting play and constant multiplication of the play, you keep the slide after slide, you're coming up with different plays and all that kind of stuff, which is very delightful. It's combative but also delightful. Do you see what I'm getting at? In other words, by multiplying this wordplay, that line that you're trying to sustain in your combative discourse can be blurred. I can come up with a very simple, amusing little anecdote, and as my department would know, that I'm a devoted a father to children. And my wife is away, and I tell them that, look, my wife is, mommy's away, then when mommy's no longer there, I'm mom. And ask them to call me as mom, and they do now. Mom, when they need to bathing, and then mom, I become mommy.
Interesting.
So, I see that line, but the same kind of deconstructive movements are constantly being played on a daily basis from our
That's really interesting. Well, thank you so much for really incisive and generous observation. I mean, I think you're spot on in seeing through that kind of tension of intelligibility, right, and the kind of certain gestural, right, invitation of the unknown, right, and so you have an image of tightrope, right? In order for one to play a game, there has to be a rule, right? In order for that play or game to be understood and practiced and performed as a game, there has to be a set of rules, right? That you have to observe, right? And so that is the part of intelligibility that I'm drawing on, right? In order to evacuate, right, from that zone, which I take to be the kind of gestural, say, provocation, right? So this is, I mean, I admit that, this is a very, I mean, I guess I'm a child of deconstruction. I mean, this is like, what I learned, although, sort of my kind of academic training has been really about, I mean, I studied Descartes, Derrida, kind of, I'm trying to sort of deconstruct Descartes, learning about, Derrida's way of unpacking and blurring, right? There's sort of binary, say, structure. But blurring there is not just about destroying, right? The traces, right? Blurring is in fact about showing the other at the same time, right? While you're performing this one, but also demonstrating other things. So allowing the door to be a bit ajar and showing the otherness of what we take to be one, right? So it's the dual structure that creates the tension. That is, in a sense, I think, that, as you so rightly, it's a structure of my interplay, right? Now, potential problem here, as I also hear you're pointing to, is a kind of certain perpetual loop, right? That gets sort of kind of reinscribed or doesn't sort of push itself forward, right? What to do with that? What is the kind of ideological counterforce, right, in this kind of interplay that is being performed? My modest response would be to say, is in the repetition, right? I think it's the constant kind of, I mean, I learned that from phenomenological attention, right? So also from like avant-garde poetics, right? Like if you read Gertrude Stein 10 times, your brains will be changed. You will be rewired, right? There's something about the power of repetition, right? It's so interesting. Like, and I think the kind of ideological counter, say, archiving, as it were, right? Is such that, you are re-normalizing, right? Something that has been questioned, right? And so, I mean, that's the kind of investment that I would be happy to make. But, nobody knows. It's a gamble, as you also rightly indicate, right? My exposition and then point is not fairly straightforward, right? It's also queer reading of femme, right? It's the constant querying, right? And I want to hear the word query, right? As a query, as the question, right? Right, query, right? And so, as long as we keep the tension alive, and that it's a logical difference where like you actually allow so because we constantly withdraw, right, back to the comfort of binary division. And so that's why I'm interested in talking about third dimensional, right? Always reminding and minding ourselves that there is always a third dimension. And although I mean, I must confess also that this is an issue that I myself been thinking about quite a lot. I mean, what is really revolutionary about transgender, right? This is an open question, right? Are we somehow transiting back and forth, right? Or are we moving forward somewhere, right? So, as much as I'm interested in talking about binary confusion, right, rather than division, I want to and need to really think further and hard, really rigorously about what is really original, right? Originating, right? About this confusion. What is the chemical reaction, right? That it can actually bring about, so that we can really see something radically new without fetishizing the new, of course, right? And so that's the spirit of the question that I take from you, and I thank you for that. And so yeah, I think it's just interesting also kind of they're performing like calling oneself like a mom. I mean, and it's like what's in the name is an interesting question, right? If I get called like an omani or 10 times, I might naturalize it, right? This is an interesting question, right? Well, yeah. It's an interesting also process.
Okay, so he never becomes mom naturally or effortlessly or mysteriously. so neither do the rest of us. We never become women effortlessly or mysteriously. It takes efforts. It takes work. So I think the most important word from this book is also the second and sex. All those words are very important. Becoming is most complicated and an important word and concept. Because when I was little and when I act like a just bad tomboy or something, and my mom says always, you should act like a woman, you should act like a girl. But it's becoming a girl doesn't happen naturally. It always takes efforts, training, and repetition, right? So I think that's something we also pay attention to. It's not just mindlessly repetition. It takes efforts and conscious performing.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, it's the. Well, thank you. This is such a conceptually compelling point that you're making. I mean, in fact, those words, the second sex, they're the kind of after effects, right, of the logic of becoming, right? Phenomenologically, right? And so, I mean, for instance, so she's kind of arguing against, say, the finishing school, right? The finishing school. What is the finishing? It's like, in a sense, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, what we say 이화여자대학교, but you know, some olden days, like, you know, it's a fascinating mix of like this radical 운동권, right? And then you have samonim to be, right? And you have all sorts of women coming in, right? Iwa, like as a birthplace of this you know, you know, higher education for women. So here, some groups of people thought of it as a finishing school, right? Right. This is where, you know, samonim is produced, right? And that's it. Like, this is like a ideological normativity, right, of the images of women, right? Is part of the performance of women, right? And so, I mean, I also appreciate your question for other reasons, and also because literally, like, if you look at the conclusion of the second sex, I mean, that's what she's struggling with. There she talks about, I mean, as I mentioned briefly, right, when femme libre, right, a free woman, is in the process of being born. It's very complicated. It's not really complicated, but the concept is interesting. It's entendre de naître. Entendre, as in like a train is pulling out, right? It's the kind of, it's in the process of being born, right? Then she talks about naître, right? So 새로운 authentic 여자가 되려면은 you have to give birth to yourself, right? It's like a renaturalization of woman, right? What is that second nature, right? Like 여자가 girl boy, this is the first thing that we think about, sexual difference, right? The first thing that we want to know, right? So in America, I don't know whether it's like here in Korea too, but there's a movement, like, you know, the parents, 좀 힙한 parents들이 아이들 성을 그 젠더를 모르게 하고 싶지 않다. 그렇게 해서 요새는 그 울트라사운드에서 알 수 있는데 일부러 모르게 하는 게 코렉트하다 생각하는 사람이 있어. 하는 그런 패션이 있고, 또 너무 재밌는 거는 아이한테 너는 걸인가 보인가 얘기 안 하는 부모가 있어요. 그런 익스페리멘테이션이 있어. 그래서 정말 젠더 뉴트럴하게 하려고. 그러니까 그 내추럴의 리미트를 테스트하는 거예요. 그죠? 그렇지만 결국은 we becoming means renaturalization. The question of nature doesn't disappear just like that, right? Just because you. So that's why it's also kind of becoming. It comes with its limit, right? And also its power, right? 그래서 그런 nature, and also like a nature is interesting. Also, in English, you know, is a be born is very passive, right? But nature is active, just like in Korean. 태어나는 is coming out, nature, like a renaissance, right? Nature is a coming out, right? 그래서 nascent, right? Sense of. So 그러면 the task is to look for or to project that free woman that is being reborn. But it's not just born, it's in the process of being born. It's like a long train is coming along. And I was reading this little article from 한겨레 the other day. 한겨레 is the one that I've been reading for a long time to keep up also with the kind of language and also learning about what's going on. And there was a very interesting article on Kimie, because I mean Kimie is one of the characters I'm using here. So Kimie is an actor. So she portrays all the stories of women, right? Over time, like her Kimie as an actor, like 20-30 years of her roles in TV drama reflects the changing faces of Korean women, right? It's very interesting, right? And then she said, 여자가 그러면 어떻게 된 현재 여자는 무엇이야 하는가를 물음을 묻고 있다. It ends with that. So it's a 물음을 묻고 있다. That's the tense, right? It's an intense moment, right? 물음이 계속 how do you say? 물음을 계속 묻고 있는 중이다. Question. 그게 뭐지? 그 여자가 되는 게 내 여성성이 뭐지? 그 새로운 거면서도 authentic한 게 뭐냐? That's exactly the question that you're asking, and I think it's not as straightforward as being a part-time mom for a number of years and stop being mom. And it's I think similar questions about transgender identity, right? So it's like, you know, the reality. Who are you really? This is a metaphysics of reality, right? Coming in there. Thank you for that question.
It is like
한국말로 하셔도 돼요. 네. 내가 생각은 다 하는데 이게 말이 빨리 안 나와서 조금. 예, 예.
I'm not sure how I should like word it, or it just popped in my head a minute ago, like a couple of minutes ago. It might not be a question; it might just be a statement, and
or something in between.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Somewhere in between. And something that just popped out in my head is that a stereotypical image of an ajumma in Korea is that when they get older, they become more male kind of image, where they become more stubborn, right? They become more masculine. And if a woman is something that you become, then I was just thinking, where would ajumma, be characterized or be placed in that spectrum of thought?
That's really interesting. Thank you for that very imaginative question, and I think it's perfect also as an example in this context of thinking about the concept of becoming, and the specificity of the question is very well taken also because ajumma stereotypically again has a kind of connotations, right? Connotations that are not exactly flattering, right? Ajumma is it's like I would say like a negative becoming, right? Almost sort of social value of being, acting, looking like an ajumma, right? Signals certain deterioration of one's certain sexuality or sexually embodied or socially embodied life, right? So age and etc. Right? So the kind of as an image, I say it's negative becoming in the sense that it actually signals the desexualization, right? Desexualization of or de-eroticization of the one's sexed being, right? Because this no longer has a reproductive functions. I guess that's partly, or still probably functional, right, reproductively, but maybe no longer appealing, right? As a sexuated object, right? And so, but the masculinization I think is very complex. We cannot sort of put that like in a binary term because ajummification, as it were, right, of women. This reminds me of this really interesting conversation that I had with some. There is a very interesting show called A Room of His Own. Have you heard of that? Go in. I mean, look it up. It's a fantastic exhibition, and I met up with the curator of that exhibition. I think it ended last January or something. Room of His Own, right? This is like looking at. It's a parody of the Room of His Own, of one's own, but not his own. Anyway, so we're just having conversation with the curator, and we talked about 여장부, the image of 여장부, right? And how 여장부 can be a kind of almost sort of phallic stand-in, right? for a woman, right? Who compensates, right? For her almost lack of femininity, and it's a flattering, it's a positive, right? And ajumma and 여장부 is an interesting term, right? 여장부 is more specific kind of validation of her ability to promote her social mobility and control, right? It signals a success in the social landscape, whereas ajumma is very neutral. There's a kind of general desexualization of gendered body, right? And so I think it will be a very interesting and important work to think about the social phenomenology of ajumma and why and how people react to this concept, right? And also because in relation to what I was saying, it's a curious proliferation, but also absence of a proper designation, right? I mean, in English, yes, sir or ma'am, that's pretty much it, right? Miss, Ms, or ma'am, That's it, Mrs. Just like, 어머님 is shocking, and then when I get called Mrs., that's kind of funny. Mrs. Lee. Where does it come from? It's because I use credit card, and and then it's like Mrs. So I must be Mrs. Lee, right? There's some kind of credit card that they think is only, I don't know, something about like a. So, but this is a fairly stratifying. It's fairly straightforward, right? You see where, but in Korean, there isn't even that kind of straightforward kind of designation, right? So you have to negotiate this various social, and I think it's also ajumma is interesting also because it's an extension of familial imaginary, extensive familial imaginary. What is the origin of ajumma? It's a kind of isn't that like a komo or imo? It's a familial term, right? The sociality is a mix of individual and familial kind of rhetoric, especially in Korea. I think that's why this guy can get away with calling me 어머니, right? When 네가 애미, right? When 네 애미, right? So he doesn't mean his mom or my mom, right? But it's like because it's like because the family structure is so pervasive and so governing, right? And so formative in Korean imaginary, right? So ajumma also plays a very interesting role. Maybe it depends on the tone with which you're actually approaching the term, right? And so that would be an interesting topic to explore, and I should think more about it. Thank you for the question.
Well, thank you for the discussion. It's really late, but let's end with a big round of applause.
Thank you so much. It's been such a